Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend is off to a good start. Browns players, day off basically. They're getting ready for their first preseason game against the Packers tomorrow here in Cleveland. One thing that still in plenty of flux is Brandon Aiyuk, the situation with the San Francisco 49ers wide receiver. Dan Graziano, ESPN's Get Up, talking about the Aiyuk trade situation.
The Niners look like they want a resolution pretty soon, one way or the other. So the change over the past week has been they've been willing to listen and talk to other teams about what it would take in terms of a trade, and they've kind of let Brandon Aiyuk talk to other teams about, what it would take in terms of a contract. And if both those things can be satisfied, then I think that there's a pretty good chance he ends up getting traded. But if not, then the Niners are at a point where they're like, okay, listen, like you've had a chance to talk to some other teams about contract. You're not hearing what you want from them either. Maybe come back to us. Maybe talk about our offer again. Maybe just play this out and hit free agency. But it's time to get to the point where we start preparing for a season. We need to know who's on our team. So I think the Niners have kind of gotten to this point where, regardless of what the outcome is, they would like the outcome to happen soon. And I think, over the next couple days, we'll see. We'll see if Pittsburgh, for example, or Cleveland can give Brandon Aiyuk what he's looking for in terms of a contract, and if the framework of a trade can be worked out. And if not, I do think there's a non-zero chance that he's on the 49ers this year.
And you also saw there that the Patriots offered a $32 million a year deal for 4 years, $128 million. And Aiyuk didn't want it, reportedly due to concerns with the team's QBs. That's from The Athletic. Let's welcome in G. Bush, 92.3 The Fan, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And G. Bush, from our understanding, the thing is the Browns and the 49ers have the compensation worked out to acquire him. The Browns have a contract that reportedly Aiyuk is okay with. He just seems to be trying to force his way to the Steelers, and the Steelers are not giving the 49ers what they want. So I don't think that's going to work out for him.
Yeah, listen, I get it. You look at the Steelers and you say, okay, well, who do they got over there? He may want to play for the Steelers because he thinks they're a better contender than the Patriots. He obviously doesn't want to be with the 49ers because they're not going to give him the money. It looks like the Browns are offering the best compensation package, and they have the pieces and parts to get it done. And Andrew Berry and the Browns organization has said, "Listen, this is what it is. Take it or leave it. We good. we're perfectly fine." And going into our season with our receiving room of Elijah Moore, we got Cedric Tillman. Looks like he's coming on. We know that we drafted some young guys like Thrash. And then you take a look at what you have at the top of the ticket. You went out and got Jerry Jeudy. You signed. You went back and got Amari Cooper, and then you have Elijah Moore. So the Browns are content. Not to mention that they have a pass catching tight end in David Njoku. So from the Browns standpoint, they're like, listen, we don't got to go outside the framework of what we're trying to do. Like, we feel like with Brandon Aiyuk, we're a Super Bowl caliber team. Without Brandon Aiyuk and Amari Cooper on the squad, we feel we still a Super Bowl caliber team. So, we'll make the move if push kind of shove, but we not desperate. And right now, he doesn't understand when you're trying to deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't think of a receiver the Pittsburgh Steelers ponied up and paid in years. Like Antonio Brown and all of some of the guys that they had before. They weren't paying those guys all this money. Like those guys automatically had to move on and go to greener pastures to get their money. Pittsburgh's notoriously stingy with the money, and they're gonna play a certain type of style of football. Like, they're not gonna throw the ball 100 times a game. And look, George Pickens is already a guy that wants the ball a lot, right? So I wouldn't say they have the best quarterback situation between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. They got some name brand recognition, but that thing is still up in the air in flux. I think, the article or the clip shows that, I'm along with them. I kind of agree.
Yeah.
There's a chance that he ends up right back in San Francisco looking around.
Yeah. And the Browns are just there saying, okay, if you guys need a solution, we can be a solution. But here's the terms of that solution, which smart way to play it. All right, it's the Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, who the Browns play week 1, by the way, about his star wide receiver, C.D. Lamb, and his contract situation. He wants a new contract. Here's Jerry Jones. Is there urgency?
Are you saying there's a sense of urgency as you begin the preseason to get CD done?
No.
No? Why you say that?
I'm just, I went to high school or I went to college. I don't know why I said it, but I'm just saying I don't know. I don't have a sense of urgency about getting it done.
It's a long-standing tradition.
Pick any reason you want.
Well, and C.D. Lamb saw that and responded, LOL. G. Bush, it's important to note, not only is Jerry Jones the owner, he's the de facto GM. So that's going to get messy, too.
I don't know what he's. Maybe it's at this point it's about the attention, and maybe he just likes the attention of people talking about the Cowboys. But this doesn't make very good business decisions, right? This doesn't make very good business sense. Like when you're dealing with wide receivers by trade are emotional creatures, right? They're like, man, look, bro, you can't come out and say it. He said it in a joking manner, like. C.D. Lamb didn't put up 1,700 yards and 130-something catches and 12 touchdowns. He act like he wasn't that guy. And Jerry Jones has a problem. It just seems he had issues with Terrell Owens. He had issues with Dez Bryant. He had issues with Amari Cooper. He basically laughed and said, Amari Cooper, he over the hill. Get rid of him. And then you go and get C.D. Lamb and you draft C.D. Lamb and you hit on him. And you're a team in the Dallas Cowboys who have not done nothing in the playoffs, and you need all hands on decks. Nobody wants to be reminded that they're being underpaid. Especially when you got the receiver market exploding, right? All around you. That's why Brandon Aiyuk wants to get one against another deal, right? They're looking around saying to some of these other guys that's getting this money, like, I'm better than that guy. I'm way better than that guy. And you take into consideration, you got to play without injury. You got to make sure that you can maximize it now, because the second you lose a step, they're gonna be telling you we're gonna have to take a pay cut. We've seen it here. We had a primetime receiver we thought in Odell Beckham Jr. until he wasn't primetime no more. It don't really be working like that. You better get what you can when you get it. And C.D. Lamb is unfollowed him, took all the stuff off the Cowboys. Now he doesn't have very much leverage, but. You're looking at the Dallas Cowboys. I don't envy them. They still got to pay Dak Prescott if they're not going to pay him. You still got guys coming off like the end, like Michael Parsons, who wants to reset the market for defensive ends. And you got C.D. Lamb. When you hit on all those guys, it's great when you're paying them pennies on a dollar. But when they max out and they want that money, now you got to make some difficult choices. So I don't want to be Jerry Jones, man.
Yeah. The other thing is, I hope they get all upset and he holds out and doesn't go into training camp, doesn't play in the preseason. Let him come out and try to run full go week 1 without any practice.
Mythical hamstring injury. Yep. I'll take all that. Listen, I ain't above that.
Nope. Nope. Have as much chaos as you can possibly have in Cowboys camp up until week 1.
Yes, sir.
All right. This is from Sports Grid, ranking the top defenses for 2024. Number 1, they have the Cleveland Browns ahead of the Ravens, Jets, Chiefs, and Patriots are the top 5. Solid portion of 2023, Browns were the best defense in the NFL. Injuries complicated the matters, but a healthy unit and Myles Garrett still in his prime. The Browns should be the standard on defense in the NFL this season. I think the defense has improved, G. Bush, and I think the numbers may not be as gaudy because they got to go against some pretty tough quarterbacks this year.
Listen, the schedule going to be crazy. The competition gonna be crazy. Now, I like what Myles Garrett said. I think he was doing an interview, and I forget who was interviewing him. But they asked him, what do you guys want to improve on? He said unequivocally, "Hey, we got to be better on the road. For the Cleveland Browns to make it where they want to go, the show has to travel. It got to be the same home cooking on the road that it is when you guys is traveling to some of these places. They gave up a lot of big plays on the road, gave up some big chunk plays on the road, and they just weren't simply the same team. At home, they were lights out. At home, it was almost like I watched one of the best offenses in the league in the San Francisco 49ers come in here and get nothing. I watched Joe Burrow look confused. I saw a bunch of things happen. I saw DTR beat the Pittsburgh Steelers at home, and we had the quarterback play we had. So they were lights out at home. I do think that they can live up to that number one billing, and I do think that they're going to have some more wrinkles. I love the fact that Mike Vrabel is in that room giving some thoughts. He's not going to be a game day type guy, but trust me, the game planning sessions, Mike Vrabel is going to be hot and heavy in there. I think they're going to be more zone teams. Sometimes it's boom or bust when you run that much man coverage. The Browns are one of the top 3 teams in the last year or so with running man-to-man coverage and getting after people. I think they're going to mix a little more zone, more cover 4 match, little cover 3. And you need to be able to run those things so you don't give up big plays, but that takes communication. And also, people got to get healthy. Dalvin Tomlinson is dinged up a little bit. Myles Garrett hasn't been 100% going, up preseason. Greg Newsome obviously is out with the hamstring surgery. And I think they need to find another one-down linebacker. That's why I'm interested in seeing Devin Bush coming up. Could he be a rundown linebacker with Hicks and JOK at linebacker? Other than that, I think the defense is pretty much set. And I'm just looking to see small tweaks to make sure that they can take it to the next level.
All right, so one of the guys that it'll be interesting to see in preseason is Mike Hall. This is from the Dogs Cleveland Browns podcast. Hall could be this year's first-round talent that Andrew Berry got beyond the first round. In 2020, they point out Grant Delpit, second round, 44th pick. 2021, it was JOK, second round, 52nd pick. 2022, Martin Emerson, third round, pick 68. Last year, it was DeJuan Jones, fourth round, pick 111. I'm anxious to see Hall, and I know he's going to grow. I know he won't be as good as a rookie as he is in his second and third year. But I think he can impact things just by his skill set.
Yep, because that's the great thing that you have when you're playing for the Cleveland Browns. The Browns have something, I don't know if people around the league know, it's called a automatic built-in cheat code. Ever since they drafted Myles Garrett, for some reason, they've just been triple teaming him, right? Like, if you're a defensive lineman, man, that's like one of those candles that the citronella candles that really attract all the mosquitoes. Well, Myles Garrett is getting all the attention, man. Like, you're not going to get double. You can't double nobody else. So you're going to get one-on-one blocking. And when you get the skill set that Mike Hall Jr. has, which is the quick get off, the quick takeoff, and that's accentuated by what Jim Schwartz wants to do. He doesn't care. He's not having you up there catching linemen and taking on double teams and trying to diagnose where the ball is. Jim Schwartz is like, here's what we want you to do, young fella. We want you to get in your best stance, and we want you to fire out, and we want you to be in the backfield every play. And if you do that, good things will happen. And so that's right what Mike Hall Jr. wants to be. He's not a nose tackle that's going to take double teams up and keep people free. But then again, you don't got to keep people free in this defense because JOK is running around. He just tells the linebackers, we want you downhill as well. So it's going to look great for Mike Hall Jr. because the defense is set up for him to have success, and it hides some of the things being an undersized defensive tackle that you would see if it was in a different scheme. So I think Mike Hall Jr. is going to be in the rotation. It'd be great if I could get 5 sacks out of him this year. I know 5 sacks at a defensive tackle position is a lot. But if you can get that type of production and pressure from Mike Hall Jr. and eventually work him into your third down package where you have him rushing inside with probably Zadarius Smith along with Obo Okoronkwo and Myles Garrett, now you got something where in JOK spying quarterbacks, you got a lot of speed on the field. And I think that's really something to look for when it comes to Mike Hall Jr. is those third down rush downs.
G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, toast, Skrilla, chips, bread and mold, cheddar, butter, loot and scratch. Find the letters, make a match. Lettuce, gravy, game on the back for $30. That's a wrap. There's many words for cash, no doubt, but there's only one $30 cash word. Check it out. Cash word from Ohio Lottery. It's $30 show. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions in prizes, don't you know?
We continue talking Browns with G. Bush from 92.3 The Fans, The Barbershop, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
This is Jim from Rochester. I happen to be listening to the comments about the trade of Cooper for Aiyuk. Why do we waste time with that? Just move on. Cooper's more fit for the offense that Mr. Stefanski runs within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. And I know what your answer is going to be. He's coming up with a new offense. But Mr. Aiyuk stretches the field. A gentleman called yesterday and said every time we trade for another wide receiver, it doesn't pan out. And if they're looking for a second-round pick, it really ain't going to pan out. This guy claims he's going to have a new offense, yet to be seen. I guess maybe I'll get a little bit of a look at it when they play their preseason game. But you guys stay safe and go Browns, I guess.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. G. Bush, Aiyuk isn't really a deep guy. He's a guy that he's a lot like Amari Cooper, and they did trade for Amari Cooper, I want to point out. Relative to the Browns' offense, we can only go by the fact that they completely rehauled the offensive staff. That's why I think it's going to look different. I think there's going to be more shotgun. Is it going to be throw the ball deep? No, nobody does that.
Yeah, that's it. Most of it is you got to think about it like in terms of this. Sometimes we boil it down and we oversimplify things a lot, and it makes it seem like everything is either black or white, or it's just left or right. But when you say overhaul the offense, there's an offensive haul in terms of philosophy. Generally speaking, just to open it, when you watch film and you watch the Cleveland Browns and their offensive philosophy of what they do, they may have a receiver run a post route. And in the old offense, you run that post route 99 out of 100 or 100 out of 100 times. It doesn't matter what the defense is doing. It's up for the quarterback to diagnose that and either look you off or go somewhere else. But you're going to run that post. In this new offense, and this isn't something new. Other teams have been running option routes for, God knows how long. And it involves, now the receiver, based on the coverage he gets, he can not only run a post, he can run a corner, he can run a stop route, he can run a dig, he can run a slant, he can run a lot of different things based on what coverage he's getting. So what you're doing is you're putting in an offense where you can call one play and your receivers can run hundreds of different route combinations based on what coverage they get. And it all depends on what you see as a receiver and what your quarterback sees. And you're hoping to have that timing so that now if it's a whole different world. Now, if I got a certain coverage, I could throw this route or this route or this route or a lot of different other options that's available to me, which gives your offense more, it's more dynamic. It's more, it gives you another opportunity to not just have plays where you see often where you got to throw the ball away, nobody's open, or you just got to take a sack, or you go to the check down out of the backfield. So that's what the new offense is. In terms of Brandon Aiyuk, he's not really a deep threat. He's a smaller. See, receivers can be, smaller, but it doesn't mean that they're vertical. Like, you could be a smaller receiver. Calvin Ridley's not a vertical threat. I wouldn't say Brandon Aiyuk is not a vertical threat. They're of the same stature as a Tyreek Hill or Jaden Waddle, but those two guys are much faster and they are deep threats. So all quarterbacks or all receivers, just because they have the same archetype does not mean they have the same skill set. So I think sometimes people get that confused. Basically, he's a guy that can run all the routes on the route tree. He's going to run underneath routes. He's not slow. He's not, he's not a guy that's limited to underneath routes. He's just not known as a blazing 4-2 guy that's going to get behind defenses. He's a good route runner, able to high point the football. He's just a really good receiver. Like, he's not a Justin Jefferson. He's not a Jamar Chase. He's not Tyreek Hill, but he's a very, very, very good receiver.
Yeah. All right, so you mentioned that. This is 10 non-rookies to watch in the preseason from CBS Sports. Now, this guy is big, and he is fast. It's Matt Landers.
Mm-hmm.
No one on the roster has Landers' size, speed, profile, 6'4", 200 pounds, 4'3", 740. He should be a fixture downfield passing game in Cleveland's exhibition game. If he produces, he can make the team and contribute in a niche, but doesn't really have a role for the Browns. He did spend time on the Seahawks and Panthers practice squads, and he has flashed some in training camp. He's a guy that everybody who has been out there has commented on him because he's 6'4" and he can run. He does some things not most NFL guys can do.
What was the guy? Watkins last year?
Austin Watkins.
Kind of flashed.
Yep.
Austin Watkins kind of flashed. See, here's the reality. He's going to have to do a lot. And the reason he's going to have to do a lot is it boils down to the Browns are actually good now. The Browns are at the point of their, I guess, maturity where we're not used to it. We're not actually used to the Browns simply being to a point where good guys are going to get cut or not make the team. Before, when we were in a position, the Browns were getting guys who weren't pro caliber players that were starting for us. Now we're at a position where you're looking to go deep in the playoffs and make a Super Bowl run. You get to a numbers game. It's 53 guys on the roster. You take a look at the receiving corps. You already know that, if you do the math, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore are your top 3 receivers. Cedric Tillman is not getting cut. He's looked like he's coming on. He's your 4th receiver. Now you get to a point where you say, okay, you've invested a 3rd-round pick in David Bell. You've invested, that's 5 receivers. You got Jamari Thrash. You got Mike Woods that you got a couple of years ago. You got Matt Landers, and I think there's a kid named Brown that they drafted as well, who's pretty fast. That's 8 receivers right there. Now, say the Browns keep 6. He's going to have to beat out somebody that they spent a decent amount of draft capital on. He's going to have to beat out a David Bell. He's going to have to beat out an Amari Thrash. And those are very difficult to do. But he is intriguing. He has been flashing. And when you're big and fast, that helps you out a little bit. It's a catch-22 because if he flashes just enough that the Browns want to keep him, he's going to that practice squad. And you know what it is when you get to the practice squad. Somebody else is going to pluck him off that roster.
All right, so Browns open up against Packers tomorrow, first preseason game. Some of the starters who aren't banged up expected to play 10 to 12 plays, so a series, maybe 2. What are you paying attention to early in the game when those potential starters are on there? And then also, who are you most anxious to see?
Actually, man, this is kind of wild. I want to see Jameis Winston a little bit. I want to see. Every time somebody plays, I'm interested in the quarterback room. Right? You mentioned something earlier. I think the Browns have been very conscious of this. We're not going to have what we have happen last year.
Yep.
We're not going to be running guys off the street to play. They went out and got a guy in Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, a lot of people don't know, threw for 5,000 yards in this league. I mean, Jameis Winston has thrown for 2 other times besides that, 4,000 yards in this league. So he's an former overall pick. He won a Heisman Trophy. He's had some good years in this league, right? So he's a guy that when the Browns play, they're going to continue to throw the football. Or like whatever offense they got, they're not going to, like if Deshaun Watson gets hurt, God forbid, or Jameis Winston needs to come in on spot duty, Jameis Winston is going to throw this football, and he doesn't have a conscience. He'll throw you 3 interceptions, but he might throw you 3 or 4 touchdowns the same game. I'm interested also, and very interested to see the 3rd quarterback battle between DTR and Huntley. When you look at Huntley, and you brought this up before the show started, he's only 2 years older than DTR. DTR is an older quarterback. He played for Chip Kelly at USC. He played 5 years, I believe, out there. He has a lot of records because he played so long. DTR, I thought, was coming on a little bit. He could throw the football, but I'm interested to see who's going to win that 3rd quarterback position because I think both of them are going to get split some carries. I think you'll see both of those guys play a lot in the second football game because they will be having inter-squad scrimmages, and they typically don't play their guys or starters because they're beat up from those practices. I think that it's going to be a very interesting battle between DTR and Huntley to see who has the 3rd quarterback position.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think both of them can play in the league if given the opportunity. So it will be very interesting. G. Bush, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, G. Bush.
Appreciate you.
All right, G. Bush, make sure you check him out. 92.3 The Fans, the Barbershop, 8 until noon on Saturdays. He also is on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show Monday through Friday from 11 to 1. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Film analysis, video breakdown. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland for film breakdown, video analysis. Lance, you've been at the Greenbrier, you've been out in Berea, so we'll get to that in a minute. But let's start. There's a lot of talk about Brandon Aiyuk. Who knows? Could come to the Browns, could stay with the Niners, could go to the Steelers. Let's take a look at what you have seen from him. You went and looked at him on tape. So take us through what you see with Brandon Aiyuk.
All right, so I've watched a lot of film on Brandon Aiyuk going back to his Arizona State days, and he does a number of things well. First, he's fantastic run after catch. That's probably his best quality. He's really good at the catch point. His one struggle may be his getting jammed off the line of scrimmage, but what intrigues you is his ability to get open. So here you're going to see his first thing he does when teams are in soft coverage, he press releases and closes the gap. You're going to see him here at the point of catch. Really, really good, strong hands, long arms. Really, really good. Then you're going to see here his ability to run after catch. And this again, Martin Emerson, who doesn't get his hands on, but this is probably his best trait, being able to run after catch. So going back to this first clip here, you're going to see him. He's going to close the gap on the Steelers defensive back. And when you close the gap or get close to the defensive back, you can go in or out. And he does a great job of that. Again, point of attack, really good at 50-50 balls. And then again, his best quality is run after catch. They run some simple routes with him, and he gets open, and then he is running back with the ball in his hands. Really, really talented guy, super athletic, 6 foot, about 200 pounds, runs a 4.5. He's not a burner, but he's a great athlete and finds ways to get open. Very similar to Amari Cooper.
All right, so obviously, the point of it, at the point of catch, he's really good. There are some things that he doesn't do quite as well. Some of the things he struggles with. Take us through that and what we see in this clip.
What you're going to see here is that when teams press him, and a guy like Denzel Ward here, you can see Denzel can run with him. So he's only a 4.5 guy, which is funny to sound. That's not fast, but in the NFL, that's good speed. That's not great speed. And a guy like Denzel Ward, who's not an undersized corner, but not a physical corner per se, he can run with it, use his hands, use his great athletic ability. Now, Brandon Aiyuk has great spatial awareness and body control, or so does Denzel Ward. So his inability to run away from Denzel Ward makes it a very tough matchup for Brandon Aiyuk. So I think teams are going to press him as he becomes a star here, press him at the line of scrimmage. Now, if you get a guy, if he goes against a Martin Emerson, and now Martin Emerson is also a 4.5 guy, but Martin Emerson's the bigger guy who can get his hands on. And I think Brandon Aiyuk tries to use his physicality, and corners who are as big as he is, they can adjust to that, so they can reroute him with their hands. He's got a ton of ability, but I look for the Browns. If he was to go somewhere else, where we heard the Steelers, the Browns would be a really tough matchup for Aiyuk, for the corners the Browns have. They would give him nightmares with what he struggles with.
Yeah, and it's important to note, in San Francisco, you've got Kittle, you've got Christian McCaffrey, you've got Deebo Samuel. So there's a number of guys that divide the defense's attention. All right, let's move on. Observations from camp. I know one of the big questions, what have you seen from Deshaun Watson?
Well, Deshaun Watson, it's the question never stops, right? So I've had a bunch of questions since the Greenbrier and into camp, and I'll tell you what, he's making all the throws. He does a really good job. So a couple of things you're going to see here as these clips go through is that, first of all, I believe he's throwing with great balance both on the run and in the pocket. The second thing I'm seeing is rotational force. So you can see it here. His ability to get his body from the left side, from the right side to the left side. And again, you're going to see balance, the ability to deliver, and he's transferring his weight at the end. So when you go back here and you start looking at these clips, first clip here, you're going to see Really, really good throw. He's going to get out of the pocket. He's in balance, and he delivers a strike to Cooper during yesterday's 7-on-7. Then I really like this one. You see him working his hips. He creates that torque, and he gets the ball out. And then a deep ball. Everybody wants to see him throw the deep ball. He's thrown a bunch of good deep balls, and part of that reason he's thrown the ball so well deep is his ability to, like I said, get from his right side to his left side, turn that body, so get his left hip from the ball almost to his right hip to the ball, and then really transfer that weight from the right side to the left side. I've been very impressed with Deshaun Watson. He's had some issues with consistency, but that comes with quarterbacks who are perfectly healthy have camp arms. Quarterbacks who are perfectly healthy don't throw everything well. I think he's progressing. I think they're amping him up perfectly. I'm looking for a big year out of Deshaun Watson. I think he's right on track to kind of push back where he was in 2020. I think people got to understand he's not perfect, but he's getting there and he's working very, very hard. And I love his practice habits.
Yeah, two things about Watson. He hasn't been on the field enough to get some of that consistency and rhythm. And the other thing is, Ken Dorsey's a pretty good offensive coordinator. From everybody that I talked to when I was out at the scouting combine across the league that knew him, he's a really good quarterback coach. So he's going to be a guy that kind of drills the fundamentals. And I think those are some of the things that were slipping a little bit the first couple of years we've seen Watson here in Cleveland.
Well, yeah, and when you're an elite quarterback and you have elite arm talent, sometimes you get away with not setting your feet and doing things right. That also puts a ton of pressure on your arm. So he's had to rehab from coming back from the shoulder injury. He's had to learn, I think, to use that lower body more and create that torque with his hips and be able to transfer his weight from his right side to his left side. And he's really doing that. And fundamentally, I've seen a ton of that out of Dorsey. I think he's going to push Deshaun Watson that when he's in the pocket or outside the pocket to stay on balance and transfer his weight. And there's a lot of quarterback guys who talk about different stuff, but in all sports, if you're going to generate any power, it starts with your hips. It starts with your lower body. And it starts from transferring that weight from one side to the other. And that's what Deshaun Watson's starting to do right now.
So the other thing next on our list, defensive line. We've been hyping it up. What have your observations of the D-line been?
Well, they've made it very tough on the defensive line. And these drills they do, every drill they do a bunch. Everything's a competition, so they make everything a game, which is really kind of fun during camp when things get stale and you've been going at it for 10, 11 days like these guys have. So there's a constant stress on having games and having fun while working hard. Really a big fan of Coach Cesare. His attention to detail, his mentality is very positive but very upbeat, and he's relentless on these guys. They've made it very tough on the offense, which is another reason Deshaun Watson has not been always consistent. This is not a defense that is fun to go against in everyday practice. These guys are 10 deep on the defensive line, and they create massive pressure. So their ability to get off the line of scrimmage, their ability to get their hands on, their ability to penetrate gaps, everything that we thought it would be, and a lot of guys do it. 10 deep do it. So I think this defensive line is going to be extremely dominant. And if you can get to third and down and long, they're going to be tough to block.
Another guy that's, I don't want to say forgotten, but he's been injured the first couple of years. Michael Woods coming back, trying to earn a spot in that back half of that wide receiver rotation. What have you seen from Woods?
Well, that fifth spot is tough, right? So you're going to see here a really good concept by Dorsey, right? He's going to create some spacing, and Woods is going to sit in that hole. This is a horizontal stretch by Dorsey. Really, really cool concept. Then you're going to see him in a man look here, kind of use his strength. Really good throw by Deshaun Watson on an out route. Going back to this first route, they're going to motion. They're going to create a window here, and you're going to see the corner drop, and then Woods does a great job of reading that and sitting in the hole. And then again, going against man coverage, you're going to see he's going to use his hands to get off the defender, and then he pushes vertical and gets to the outside. Great body control, great spatial awareness. I'm extremely impressed with the physical condition Michael Woods came back in. He's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger, he looks leaner. He's added some weight. He looks really fast. That fifth receiver spot, him, Jamari Thrasher, some other guys, David Bell's made some catches. It's going to be really interesting how many receivers they keep, especially if they're going to be in 11 personnel. Do they keep an extra receiver? That extra receiver is going to have to be good on special teams, etc. So it'll be very good. I think this preseason is going to be huge for Michael Woods and the others to make plays and show consistency for the Browns offense.
All right. They've got a lot of guys that are kind of fighting for a couple of spots. Before I let you go, secondary. That's another area that I think is loaded, and I think particularly the safeties, I think we tend to forget they were banged up, and they still played pretty well. What have you seen from the secondary, especially the corners?
Well, like you said, Emerson, Emerson and Ward. First thing I like is the fact that they work at such a high level. They don't take anything for granted, and they do a great job of practicing hard every day. And again, Delpit has been really good. Thornhill's been really good. The backups have been really good. But what I really like is the professionalism of these two guys. So first route you're going to see, this is Jerry Jeudy running the sluggo. Emerson does a great job of running with him, turning his head when Jeudy does. Then during Skelly, this is against Watson. The defense has been very good in Skelly. It's very tough secondary. You're going to see Ward using his elite speed to get in front. And they make plays. They're leading by example. Really outstanding quarterback group with their effort each day. They work hard and individual. They take everything kind of personal. They don't want to give up any receptions whatsoever. They're highly competitive. It's very fun to watch. And I'm just impressed that you would think guys who are all pro and everybody talks how highly regarded they are. They work really hard and take nothing for granted. Whole secondary's been outstanding, led by these two guys. I think they're going to be, again, this defense, if that linebacker crew can get healthy and play at a high level, the defensive line in the secondary is elite, top 5 elite in the NFL.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always really good and insightful video analysis, film breakdown of the Browns and the rest of football as well. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report and the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast straight ahead. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. This one's from the Bleacher Report. Biggest talking points for every NFL team. For the Browns, I'd be all about a Brandon Aiyuk trade. You've already put all your eggs in the Deshaun Watson basket. Might as well shoot for the stars and give him as many resources as possible the next couple of seasons. Let's welcome in Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, also the host of the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Brad, I don't know if that's the biggest talking point. I understand the thought, and I agree with the thought. You want to surround Deshaun Watson with as many weapons as possible. He's got a pretty good complement of weapons right now.
Yeah, the Browns will be fine either way as this Aiyuk thing, pans out. I think they are perfectly fine with the wide receiver core that they have now. I get what they're trying to do, set themselves up for the future with a number one. And I was all about it. I was all about getting Brandon Aiyuk because I do think he's a very good player. But when you kind of start to hear the rumblings, Dave, of he doesn't want to be in Cleveland and this and that, if he doesn't want to be here, I don't really want him, that kind of changes your feeling on the whole situation. I don't want a guy that doesn't want to be here or just comes here just for the money. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you. And again, we'll see. We talked a little bit earlier. I think he's trying to force his way to Pittsburgh. In order for that to happen, 49ers are going to have to get a whole lot more than what Pittsburgh is reportedly offering them. All right, what about, I know you wrote an article, Amari Cooper's non-extension and how it possibly could impact Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I mean, so the non-extension, the restructure, we were kind of expecting additional years on that deal, and they've left themselves wide open. Elijah Moore was coming into this season, Dave, and Cooper had an extension for a couple years, and Judy was already extended for a couple years. There's not really any more extensions to give out in the wide receiver room. You want to have a young guy there too, right? You'd be looking at Said Tillman, Jamari Thrash. But depending on what happens with Cooper, I think it does breathe a little bit of life into Moore's chance to maybe stick around in Cleveland a couple years if he were to go out and have a really good season. The one nice thing that the restructure as opposed to the extension did is it left all of Andrew Berry's options open moving forward. So if they want to pursue keeping Cooper around, then they can do that. And if they want to, keep Elijah around, they can do that. If they want to try to do something else or work a trade or whatever, they can do that as well. So I think it was smart. I didn't see it coming. I thought for sure an extension was coming. But it does kind of give some new life to Elijah in a contract year. If he wants to stick around, he can go out and maybe earn it.
I know you've discussed this on the Orange and Brown Report roundtable. Do you think Kevin Stefanski made the right decision to retain play calling? And that's a...
No question.
Yep.
No question. I think he all along kind of was stuck with the idea that I didn't think he'd give it up. That's what he does best, Dave. He's a great sequencer. He gets a good feel for the game for the most part. And it's a collaborative effort. He'll have Dorsey up in the booth, which will be, a nice addition in helping him out in that collaborative effort. But even, listen to Deshaun on his podcast. There's a shorthand there that already exists between Stefanski and him in his helmet before they cut him off in the play. And he talked about that and how it was helpful to him, as he sets up the play, what they're looking to do along with the play call. So I think changing that up would have been a mistake at this point.
The other thing, I think it's much easier to go from Kevin Stefanski calling plays to Ken Dorsey calling plays than it would be if you gave play calling to Ken Dorsey and took it away from him. Now you've made your offensive coordinator pretty much, he's not an offensive coordinator. He's more of a quarterback coach.
It's a great point. Yeah, it's a great point.
Greg Newsome, do you think he's going to miss more time than we initially thought? Again, I know you wrote an article about this one for the Orange and Brown Report.
I do, Dave, and I just talked to, we have a doctor on my show, and we had him on last night, Dr. Jesse Morrison. He works with NFL players and stuff, but, the Newsome injury was a surprise when they showed up for camp a little bit. He had already had the surgery, but to have surgery on a hamstring, typically, Dave, means that the hamstring was torn away from the bone, and you're looking at a significant recovery, especially for a defensive back, too. It's not like, as the doctor was saying last night, it's not like he's a lineman, right? We're talking about change of direction, stop, go. And you're looking at a bit of recovery time. So when he said he thought he could be back for week 1, I kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit, and then kind of diving into it a little deeper, I do think he'll miss more time than that personally.
All right, so we're going to move on to another article that you wrote, Things You Think You Know About the Browns. How do they manage Greg Newsome's absence?
Yeah, well, Cam Mitchell, he did a nice job last year. He filled in admirably. I like what Cam can do. And, I'll be really interested to watch what comes, behind them, how they manage this, right? It's kind of they have to keep an eye on Miles Harden and Khalif Halassi and determine how far along they are in their progressions. Do they trust them with depth if another person were to go down? You do have Denzel out there and stuff, and, he's been known to miss time as well. So while Greg is out, if you were to go further into your depth, do you trust Khalif Halassi? Do you trust the rookie Miles Harden? Or do they need to go out and get another veteran cornerback? And I think that's something they're probably evaluating right now.
Yeah, nickel corners aren't quite as bad as outside corners. The other one that comes to mind is, and I don't know the skill set of Ronnie Hickman, seems to have some ball skills. Could you get by with him a couple of weeks in a pinch?
Yeah, of course you can try to get use your safeties, especially, in an overhang role to kind of fit, cover that up, missing your slot guy. But it'll be interesting to see how they manage it. I do want to see. Excited to see Miles Harden. I think he could be a pretty good player in that slot role. So excited to see those guys on Saturday for sure.
So this is something we've talked about. It's intriguing players for every NFL team's training camp. This is from the 33rdteam.com. And they say this was a somewhat underreported thing this offseason. Chubb agreed to drop his 2024 payout from $12.2 million to $2.275 million. Could earn it all back through active game roster bonuses and incentives. But the Browns were clearly not going to keep him under the old contract. Chubb had to make a significant sacrifice just to stick around. There's a shred of truth to that. I think that Chubb's camp thinks those are realistically attainable roster bonuses and that he's going to be ready sooner rather than later.
I certainly think they think that's a possibility, yes. I think they can earn some of it back. I also think there's some truth to the idea that the team that you're with values you more than some other teams at times, especially when you're in a situation where you're rehabbing from a major injury, right?
Yep.
I don't think a lot of teams would have extended, any kind of guaranteed money to Chubb coming off that injury, a little bit of a flyer or risk. But the Browns know who he is. They know what he can do. They have seen the kind of person he is, his work ethic. And because of that, they were able to work out a deal. Even Nick talked about in his interview how grateful he was that they were willing to work with him and keep him on the roster and all that stuff. So even just hearing that from the player's mouth, you got to think that, there's a good relationship there and he's okay with trying to hit those goals. But if not, okay, this is the first year off a major knee injury like that is sometimes not great, Dave. But if he can prove by the end of the year that he can be close to himself, then he can extend his career and maybe get another big payday.
Yeah, and the other thing is you're seeing him run, you're seeing him cut, you're seeing him do the agility thing. I realize it's not football, but it is trending towards football activities, which is what you want to see at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. He's far ahead than anybody would think right now. So, it depends on how, cautious or conservative the Browns want to be with him, right? You'd rather have him at the end of the year going full go than have him at the beginning of the year and have a setback. So I realize, it's hard. It's hard not to get excited and be like, get him out there week one. You know what I mean? But we'll see how that plays out.
Nick, we need you for the AFC North game, so we're gonna hold you back until you can be full go against the guys that
second half.
Exactly, I'm with you. Brad Ward and I are gonna step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll turn our attention to the Packers preseason game coming up Saturday. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, toast, Skrilla, chips, bread and mold. Cheddar, butter, lute, and scratch. Find the letters, make a match. Lettuce, gravy, game on the back for $30. That's a wrap. There's many words for cash, no doubt, but there's only one $30 cash word. Check it out. Cash word from Ohio Lottery. It's $30 show. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions in prizes, don't you know?
We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, as well as the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. This is from the NFL Network's Good Morning Football. Peter Schrager on Jameis Winston is the Browns' backup quarterback.
He's suddenly become this veteran presence that these guys can lean on, because you forget here, and Akbar and I say, Jameis was a good NFL quarterback. Jameis is one of the best college quarterbacks of all time. So the respect is there from these guys. His career is legit. He could put his resume up against anybody. He started for 5 years in Tampa and was a #1 overall pick. So you look at what Jameis can bring here. Look, Joe Flacco was a Cinderella story, but you're right. Akbar, if it's in case of emergency and you need to throw in Jameis Winston, he can win you football games.
Brad, when you look at it, Jameis Winston threw for over 5,000 yards. Now, he's a 30 for 30 guy, and I don't mean the ESPN documentaries. It was 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. I mean, those are actual numbers. So, he's a guy that probably is one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's not going to get the start here if Deshaun Watson's healthy.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about him being one of the best 32, Dave. You're absolutely right. So, and very possibly could be the best backup in the league as we sit right now. The thing that's even so more impactful about him is if you heard him speak yesterday in what was an epic media, what do you say, knick-knack, paddywhack, or I'm rhyming. He was all over the place yesterday. But his advocacy for Deshaun Watson, I mean, just that energy around him and, like, lifting him up constantly with his positivity, along with his play, and he's been very good in camp so far. I'm looking forward very much to seeing him throw to some of these younger wide receivers on Saturday. But he's been great. His play's been great, and he's such a positive. I mean, having him, Vrabel around, how could you not have energy in that building constantly, right? Like, he's just the speech yesterday, I was ready to run through a wall. I was fired up, man. He was great. He was terrific. And I love the way that he is, just being so positive about Deshaun, in his ear all the time, telling him how great he is. He kind of needs that right now, you know?
Yeah. And, the one ding against him has been the interceptions, but you've seen what this defense. He can't throw more interceptions than Joe Flacco threw last year. I mean, yeah. All right. What do we need to see from the Browns? What do you need to see from the Browns in the preseason when you look at it?
So obviously, we're all excited to see the offense, right, Dave? But they're going to be very vanilla. We know that, right? They don't want to give anything away. Part of week one is a little bit of, element of surprise is some of the stuff that they're going to be running. So you're going to look for some basic stuff, is there more motion, right? That's one of the things I'll be watching for. Is there a lot more motion? I keep hearing that there is. I keep seeing some. What does the run game look like? They don't have their tackles healthy, so it's gonna be a little bit problematic, I think, at least while if the Packers have their ones in for a little bit. James Hudson struggling a little bit on the left side. You don't want to get anybody hurt or anything, so you got to be careful there. Get him help early on. And then I'm excited to see the wide receivers, the young wide receivers. You want to see Jamar. You want to see Sed. You want to see, I'm, like I said earlier, very excited to watch Miles Harden and Khalif Halassi play. But Sed Tillman, Jameis Winston connection, exciting stuff. I don't think they'll give too much away offensively. Keep your superstars on the sideline. And let's watch the young guys, compete for some of the last spots on these roster. I actually will really enjoy this. For once, the Browns have a lot of talent that we haven't really got a chance to see yet on this roster. So I'm actually looking forward to the preseason game to get to see some of these guys play in a live game action. And that the offense is the thing, Dave. The offense is the thing, right? What can we take away from it? They're probably not going to show a whole lot, but it'll be interesting to see what they do show.
So you mentioned Hudson. Are you thinking at all about potentially having to move DeJuan Jones over to left tackle?
I feel like they already should have started giving him reps over there if they were going to do it, and they haven't. So, yeah, I don't get that. I kind of question that because you got two guys that are injured still with no clear timeline of return. And you don't really have anybody else. Like you can't start James Hudson in an NFL game at left tackle on Sundays. You just can't do it. You're going to get your quarterback killed. They had to stop practice the other day and just tell Miles to stop beating James Hudson so they could get some offensive plays off, Dave. I mean, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's not exactly idea. If I'm Jameis Winston, I'm not thrilled with that as I think about lining up against the Packers. All right, what are you most anxious to see Who are you most anxious to see tomorrow?
Well, as I mentioned, Jameis, very much so, and Cedric Tillman, who looks like he's really, expanded his route tree from some clips we've seen, and from some people I've talked to that he's looked really solid out there. He looks big, strong, fast. He cooked Denzel Ward on a route the other day. So, that is a guy that I will be watching. I'm assuming that he's going to get a good amount of play time, at least while Jameis is in there. And like I said, I'm a little bit, I want to see what we have as far as corner depth. So Miles Harden is a big one for me. Can he go out and cover in the slot? Like, we know he can play zone. We know he can get physical. He's an in-your-face corner, the kind of guys that we like, right? Like kind of an Emerson type of persona as far as the way he plays. But can he play man coverage like Halasi can? And then evaluating from that, do they need to add somebody there? If they're going to be, like I kind of think they are, if they're going to be without Greg for a while. Watching all those things, I think, will be interesting.
I'm curious to see Mike Hall. I want to see Mike Hall Jr.
Yeah.
We've seen some of the competitions with Miles, and how quick does he get into the backfield, and does he win one-on-ones the way we think he might?
Sounds like he's doing it in practice and been very impressive. Everything everybody said about him has been great. So it sounds like he's kind of carving himself out a role. I agree. That is a guy that I am looking forward to watching very much so. Can he make an impact, get a few pressures, get in the backfield, disrupt at the in his first NFL live action will be fun to watch. I mean, the preseason should be really fun to watch because there's a lot of young talent out there that's fun to watch. So I'm excited about it.
So this is 5 Browns players with the most to gain Saturday against the Packers from Browns Wire. They go defensive end Sam Kamara, an uphill battle for Kamara to make the roster, but if Dalvin Tomlinson or Shelby Harris isn't ready to start the season, the team could be confident with Kamara filling in. Wide receiver Cedric Tillman, we've talked about him, has a unique skill set that others at the position just don't have and has been showing that off so far in training camp. Siaka Ika was best anchoring the middle of the defensive line as a run stuffer in college. Really didn't play a whole lot last year. They go center Luke Whippler, with veteran Brian Allen being injured. Whippler has a chance to lock down the backup center spot. And tight end Zaire Mitchell-Payton has all the physical tools. If he can become a serviceable blocker, he has a decent chance at stealing a roster spot. The one thing that I've heard from multiple people who have been out of training camp a lot was that Giovanni Ricci is much more athletic than they were led to believe.
Yeah, he becomes interesting because they've been using him in a variety of ways, right? Out of the backfield, as a tight end, as kind of an H-back. And then the other guy I would mention there, along with Mitchell, is Trayton Welch, right?
Yep.
I know he caught a long pass the other day. Is he a guy they can kind of count on for some depth after Jordan Akins at tight end? Because that's kind of still a question mark. Like, how do they want to handle that? And who's going to do that? Is it going to be Mitchell? Is it going to be Welch? Is it going to be somebody that's not even on the roster right now, right? Or Ricci, right? So all of those things will be interesting to watch, and how they use Welch and Ricci will be interesting as well. I think the depth at linebacker and tight end are kind of both interesting areas to watch, the maybe undecided battles at this point.
Yeah, the other thing that I think is really interesting is how the back end of the receiving room shakes out. Because I think that we've mentioned Tillman. You got David Bell. Landers is a guy who's kind of flashed, and talk about a skill set not many in the NFL have, 6'4" and 4.43, 4.29, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's intriguing if you want to throw the ball vertical and on choice. I mean, we say David Njoku's a mismatch. This guy's a mismatch.
He is. He's a RAS superstar. I mean, his RAS score is out of this world. Size, speed, everything. He's got it all. So it's kind of, it's a wonder why he hasn't been able to put it together a little bit more. But I know he's been very exciting out at camp, stretching the field vertically. Jamari Thrash.
Yeah.
I think, is a guy who very much cut from the same cloth as like Elijah Moore. He's a guy that I think could even carve himself out a role. The back end of that wide receiver room is very interesting. I think you kind of have your first four locked in there. And then it's like David Bell, Michael Woods, Jamari Thrash, and Landers. And that's an interesting battle right there of how that shakes out. Of course, you give the draft picks a little bit of an edge, right, in Andrew Berry's roster, but still very interesting to see. There's going to be an odd man out there that they're going to have to try to fit through the practice squad, at least, even if you took Landers out of the equation and look at Thrash, Bell, and Michael Woods, all very talented guys. One of them is going to have to get pushed through the practice squad. So, interesting battle.
Brad Ward, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Brad.
You are the best, Dave. Thank you for having me, sir.
Brad Ward, make sure you check him out. Writes for the Orange and Brown Report. He is also the co-host of the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Browns and Packers tomorrow at Cleveland Browns Stadium. We will see you Monday to talk about what we see over the weekend. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.